Hey guys, welcome back, and this is chapter number 2, section 4, and we're going to look at some external forces that are shaping our Earth. And one of the topics that we are going to be discussing today is the idea of weathering. And so I want you to take a look at this video that explains it really well. Be sure that you take notes as you watch the video and that you are paying attention to what they are talking about.
This is Earth, home to 7 billion plus people, 7 continents, and all kinds of amazing plants and animals. This is what Earth has looked like for a long time, and will probably continue to look like for a long time, right? Yes, and no. Sure, this is what Earth looks like from space, but even though it looks pretty much the same from whenever we view it from afar, once you zoom in on it, you can see it's always changing. On a small scale, things like moving water shape the Earth's landforms, the natural features of the Earth's surface. On a bigger scale, the gradual shifting of the Earth's crust is slowly moving even bigger things, like the oceans and the continents. So one day, our planet will look different, maybe a lot different from how it looks now. So how exactly does water shape Earth's landforms? Or to bring it back to the spheres we've been talking about, how does the hydrosphere affect the geosphere? To understand that, we need to discuss weathering. I'm not talking about the weather, like if it happens to be sunny or cold or foggy outside your window right now. I'm talking about weathering, the process that takes place as rocks and other parts of the geosphere are broken down into smaller pieces. Weathering can be caused by water, air, chemicals, plants, or even animals, including us. And there are 2 types of weathering you need to know about: mechanical weathering and chemical weathering. Mechanical weathering is the process of breaking big rocks into little ones. Frost, ice, the roots of plants, running water, or heat from the sun can all cause mechanical weathering. Chemical weathering involves the changes that some substances can cause in the surface of the rock that make it change shape or color. Things like carbon dioxide, oxygen, and acids can all cause chemical weathering. And when rocks have been weathered and all broken down and are later moved by natural forces like wind, water, or ice, that's called erosion. Weathering and erosion sound pretty similar, right? Well, yeah. But not exactly. Think of weathering as the hammer that breaks down the rocks. Erosion is the process that carries those rock fragments away, or put in a way we're all familiar with. Weathering helps make a mess, and erosion helps clean it up. Let's take a trip to the beach to see what part the hydrosphere plays in weathering and erosion. This is a picture taken from space of the coastline of Massachusetts in the northeastern United States. It's part of a landform called Cape Cod, and the picture shows what the beaches and islands around it looked like in 1984. Now look at this photo from 2014. What's different? There are actually more islands in 2014 than there were before. Back in 1984, that long strip of land was North Beach. Now, that strip of land has been chopped up into separate islands. The top part is North Beach, the middle area broke off into North Beach Island, and the bottom part is now called South Beach. So, how did that happen? Well, moving water is a major cause of erosion, and there's a lot of moving water in the Atlantic Ocean. The intense energy of ocean waves crashing on shore causes pieces of the rocky, sandy coastline to break into smaller pieces or to weather over time. Then, natural forces like major storms and rising sea levels then move or erode these smaller pieces. Day to day, you might not notice any dramatic changes, but over the course of 30 years, well, as these pictures show, coastlines can change a lot. So what can we take away from this? Well, we saw that water can weather and erode Earth's landforms, and that's just one example. There are so many others, like floods weathering valleys or glaciers eroding mountains. Let me break it down for you this way. See what I did there? The hydrosphere shapes and sometimes moves the geosphere. One last joke before I sign off. What did the geosphere say to the hydrosphere? You crack me up.
I hope you enjoyed that video and that you took some good notes on what they were talking about. There are a couple things that they did not mention that I want to make sure to include in your notes, so be sure to include these things when we're talking about erosion, especially when we're talking about water erosion. It's important to note that a delta is formed as the sediment comes at the base of the river and spreads out to the ocean. That sediment comes down and is dropped there at the end of the river, and that is where we see these deltas formed. One of the more famous ones happens at the base of the Mississippi River, right there in New Orleans. And So we can see that it is a meeting point between the river and the ocean that forms these deltas. A couple of things that would be good to know with erosion is the fact that we can have glacial erosion. And I know the video didn't talk about that type of erosion, but I think it's important that we do note that. So a glacier is a mass of ice that is moving as a result of gravity, and that glacier is going to move extremely slow. It's not something you would typically see with just your bare eye, but it is going to move over the course of time. So glaciation changes the landform as this glacier moves. And so there is definitely some adjustment that the Earth is going to make as this glacier is sliding down over the Earth's surface. And one of the things that is left as a result is called a moraine. And this is where we have rocks that are left behind from this glacier, and they are going to form hills, or they're going to have large rock formations that we can see as a result of this glacier coming through. So far in this section, we have talked a lot about ways that the Earth has been shaped by external forces, and it's primarily focused on breaking things down. What we're going to talk about next is building up soil and how our soil is formed and what consists in our soil. And so as you go to the playground, or you go out on the soccer field, or you are just mowing your lawn, most of us don't take the time to think about what is actually underneath that grass. So here we're going to look at it. We begin with the term soil. It's simply just a loose mixture of weathered rock, organic matter, air, and water. So you put all those things together and you have dirt. And a lot of different things can be involved in that dirt, especially when we're mentioning organic matter. So that organic matter is called humus. And that is what is all this stuff that is broken down and is now going to form one of the layers of our soil. There's three factors in making our soil fertile to be able to grow things. You need to know those three factors. It is the texture of the soil, the humus, as well as the amount of air and water. And if you don't have one of those three things right, you're not going to grow your tomatoes. As we build soil, there are 5 factors in building soil and putting it all together. The first one is the parent material. These are the chemicals that make up the original rock. The relief is also important as we look at the steep slopes of the hills and mountains. So there are certain parts of our globe that are not going to grow things if it's too steep and water can't collect there. The organisms found in the soil, those are going to help loosen up the soil and help supply nutrients. And so that's a pretty important part if you want to have good soil. Your climate is also going to be important. So you have to have the right climate. There are certain things that are not going to grow here that may grow in another part of the world. And so you need to know your climate, you need to know your soil. And then time. Time to produce soil is necessary. It is said that there's about 2.5 cubic centimeters produced every 100 years. So it does not happen overnight. It's going to take some time. Hope you've picked up some important things here. Hope you've enjoyed it. Go back and watch it if you need some more refreshers on this chapter, and we will see you.